It's Messi! It is the cleanest of clean finishes from the best on the planet.
It's time for the biggest sports stories.
Liverpool, the champions of Europe, are top of the world.
The biggest interviews.
That such a great spectacle is ruined by such thuggish behavior.
And all the analysis right here.
He's the one player that has the arrogance to think that he can play in any stadium in the world and any pitch in the world in front of any player in the world and take them on.
Every weekday, it's my sport, it's your sport. It's ZiFM Sport. Let's join the team for the biggest show in the world of sport on ZiFM Stereo. My station, your station.
It's a very good evening and welcome to ZiFM Sport on a Friday. Fire Friday, we like to call it. And today's show has a full complement of the team, minus Alois Bunjira. We're sure he'll be back on the show come Monday. But on the show tonight, Chris Gray, Mike Madoda, Mark Pozzo, our producer, Sean Tafirinika. My name is Barry Menandi. What can you look forward to while on the home front of sports and recreation activities in the country that had been iced due to the COVID-19 pandemic are set to resume any time, albeit after meeting set minimum conditions as defined by the Sports and Recreation Commission as well as health authorities.
In our international sport, Ferrari Formula One chief Matteo Binotto says recent talks with Sebastian Vettel over a new contract revealed they no longer shared the same goals.
And around the world in 60 seconds, we begin in Serbia, where Novak Djokovic believes he will break the record for the most Grand Slam titles and become the longest reigning world number one by the time he retires. In Japan, the International Olympic Committee has announced a funding package of $800 million to cover the cost of the postponed Tokyo Games. And in the United States, Rory McIlroy is embracing the tag as favorites for this Sunday's tailor-made driver release, although he's adamant he won't be underestimating his opponents.
Second half of the show is always the beautiful game, and we kick off in the Bundesliga where football is back. And second place, the Borussia Dortmund will welcome bitter rivals and sixth place Schalke 04 to the Westfalenstadion behind closed doors in the league's first game since the 2019-2020 season was suspended in March. In the Premier League, Tottenham striker Harry Kane says he is fully recovered from a hamstring injury and will be ready to go whenever the league resumes. In La Liga, Lionel Messi insists Barcelona cannot win the Champions League unless they improve their performances, disagreeing with head coach Quique Setien. And we'll wrap it up in Serie A, where former Italy striker Marco Di Vaio has admired the patient approach Lazio have taken in building a squad capable of challenging for the 2019-2020 Scudetto.
The Warriors, the Chevrons, the Cheetahs, the Mighty Warriors, and the Sables. From the pool to the track to the field, we are Team Zimbabwe. The Home Front. Local sports news and analysis.
Even as we're doing the show, the lockdown edition, from the comfort of our homes and bringing it to the comfort of your living room, remember you too can be a part of the show. Why don't you follow and interact with us on social media, Twitter and Facebook at ZiFM Sport, or even in our individual capacities. Simply search for Mark Pozzo, Chris Gray, Barry Menandi, Sean Tafirinika, and myself, Mike Madoda, on the different social media platforms that you are on. Now, news from Zimbabwe is that some sports and recreation activities in the country that had been iced due to the COVID-19 pandemic are set to resume anytime, albeit after meeting set minimum conditions as defined by the Sports and Recreation Commission as well as health authorities. The sports and recreation activities have been classified into three different categories, ranging from high risk to low risk sport codes, respectively, with most of the crowd-pulling sporting activities and those deemed to be contact sport being classified under the high risk code. So finally, we're getting some thinking. Finally, we're getting some sort of communication, Chris, from the sports ministry and from the regulatory authorities that they are beginning to think post-COVID, or even what will happen to sport in the months and the years to come. And this is a start. It's a welcome start by at least just showing us that, you know what, someone out there is thinking.
Absolutely. I think also it was great to hear, I think the president himself highlighted that he's waiting for this kind of plan to hear from the SRC and the Ministry of Sport to find out exactly what their plan is. This is a great start. They basically have categorized everything, but I think what people are waiting for now is more in terms of guidelines and timelines to see when does everything get restarted again, what starts first, what measures of implementation will be taken for the different sporting codes. So it's a great start, but I think it's time to lurch ahead and join the rest of the world in actually setting timelines.
Okay, so in terms of just going through those categories for the sport, some of you might be asking yourselves, what are the low-risk sports? Well, we can tell you that things like archery, swimming, cycling, golf, tennis, chess, if you can call it a sport, darts, is it a sport now? I'm surprised. Shooting, fencing, and rowing, they have been pulled under the low-risk sport codes and are likely to resume subject to the set guidelines. So you notice that there's an emphasis, of course, on the type of sport where it's individualized. You know, like tennis, you can play and perform by yourself, you can train by yourself. But the highest risk sport codes are, of course, football and rugby, where there's a lot of physical contact, and they also attract quite a few fans. Now, SRC Director General Prince Mpashilio yesterday wrote circulars to the leadership of national sports associations outlining various guidelines that they have to be followed before resumption of activities. Mark, I think this will be welcome news, especially for guys who are involved in sports like, I think, rowing, where Zimbabwe always sends a contingent to the Olympics, and they need to be training, you know, and if they are involved in periods of inactivity, especially months on end, it could be detriment to their chances of qualifying for the Olympics and then performing capably at the Olympics.
Very much so, Mike. I think, look, as Chris said earlier, the timelining is what we all need to know now. We need to know exactly when this is all going to happen. And yes, rowing is obviously one of our key sports that we've done always well at international level. And to get them back out of the water and training, I know a lot of them have been doing a lot of indoor training as we speak. But you know, there's nothing quite like, as you would know, you can go into a bowling machine and go into the nets, but there's nothing quite like being out in the middle. So it's pretty much the same with rowing, that they need to get on the water ASAP and get training.
Now, high-risk sport codes, those, of course, like I said earlier, basketball, water polo, volleyball, taekwondo, rugby, netball, judo, handball, and field hockey. Barry, those are the sports that a lot of people will look to because those are sort of like the main sport codes in Zimbabwe. And they will be interested to find out what is the plan. What is the plan as far as they are concerned? Because they are dependent on being out in the middle, like Paul said, and they're also dependent, especially football, on gate takings.
They certainly are, and the reason why they are high-risk sport codes is as a direct result of that fact that you point out, that they draw crowds, and we've got to sort of keep the crowds away from one another. The low-risk ones are almost, they maintain social distancing, as it were. These ones are contact sports, and they attract crowds. So I think these, if anything, when we see the timelines, likelihood is going to be that the high-risk sport codes are going to come in last when we have some sort of mitigation measures in place that we can actually handle. Whether training of these sports will be allowed a little before we start seeing competition, I don't know, but that's likely if we want to follow the model that's been happening all around the world. But certainly the high-risk sport codes, the fans and the players need to cool their heels. I think this will be last in coming.
Yeah, and I think Chris also pointed out early on that I think we need to move on from this step. We've just taken a baby step. This is the initial step right at the beginning of planning. I think what we need is a more concrete plan and more concrete resolutions, step-by-step breakdown of how we're going to get back to playing sport again in the country, and not just the low risk or medium risk, but also the high risk. And we also need to start planning around the fact that perhaps, Chris, COVID may be here to stay. We may well be living in a community or in a society where COVID is living in the middle of us.
Absolutely, and this is going to change the way we view sport, the way we consume it on the different media, and the way, I think to a certain extent, the way that it's played. So those are some of the things they need to look at, and especially I think for Zimbabwe, in as much as we don't have a big sporting industry, what we do have is different entities that are reliant on the resumption of sport and people whose livelihood is sport. And we need a plan in terms of financially, how are these people going to be supported? How are these organizations going to be supported? What structures are going to be put in place in terms of changing revenue models away from, gate takings and things that involve contact to, okay, maybe we need to start looking at how we're going to do in terms of viewership and, for example, streaming services.
Yeah, absolutely. And it opens up an opportunity, I think, for media services, I think, to diversify their offerings and to be a bit more versatile. The problem, though, is, that Zimbabwe is not even at the rudimentary stage, because you take a look at most of our sport in Zimbabwe. I don't think of any sport that is consistently televised at a professional level. You take a look at our first-class cricket games, our Premier Soccer League, our rugby matches, nothing is televised. And so we read about what's happening around the country, but we rarely watch what's happening unless, of course, it is being streamed on Facebook. And we've seen this initiative taken up, especially on the school scene.
Yeah, and you know what? If you look at this, we are behind. We are behind, and I believe that is a national problem. That is a big problem for us. At least if we were screening Premier League football matches, as you say, first-class cricket matches, there could be some relief that there's a way that these could be streamed and for all to see. But we're not even on that level yet, and that's pretty sad for us. Very, very sad, in fact.
It's a challenge, Barry, isn't it, for media companies, but more than just media companies, it's a challenge for our national sports associations, because they have got to come up with a plan. You and I, of course, sat in a meeting, I think, at the back end, in fact, at the beginning of this year, where we were talking with an interested party in the Castle Lager Premier Soccer League, who want their matches televised, and they're crying out and saying, you know what, we are pouring in X amount of money, but we are not getting the mileage that we feel we deserve from the game. And so it's a challenge now for our national sports associations to find ways and means for the games to be televised, for the games to be publicized beyond the reports that we read in the Herald, Daily News and Newsday.
The key there being, Mike, that we need to start. And I think NSAs are at fault slightly, because I think some of them, in particular maybe football, are looking at it and thinking they can start at the top and demand big sort of funds for televising sport and start earning the big revenues. All of the including the English Premier League, started somewhere. They started at the bottom and they began to build it up, because you build the viewership, you build the interest, and then the money comes. So I think NSAs need to think about starting first and foremost. Some of them may not, like for instance, Taekwondo, can't expect that money is going to come straight away. Let's put it on TV, let's get people watching, and then we grow the revenue base. So I think it's an issue, and there are countless quality media companies out there that are willing to actually start getting this process going. It's that engagement coming together and people working towards getting this done.
Well, other nations are calling it Project Restart. In Zimbabwe, it doesn't yet have a name, but we are starting to take steps towards the resumption of sport once again in the nation. I like the point that Barry mentions about starting small and then building up, of course, to bring in the money as far as TV is concerned. Just take a look at Ligue 1 in France, for example. I think they were on a deal that was giving them just shy of 200 million, but their latest deal, which is going to be for next season going forward, I think gives them 800 million per season. So that's a huge jump for them, but because they've managed to build it brick upon brick, line upon line, and that is the model that I think Zimbabwean sport has got to take. This is ZiFM Sport on a Friday, Fire Friday, Party Friday. This is the show that brings you all the sports news that you need to know, local as well as international.
Hi, my name's Ryan Cairns, Sunshine Tour professional golfer, and you're listening to ZiFM Sport.
We'll start with karate, where Regional Sportsman of the Year Wilfred Mashaya and his Zim Ninja Academy have said that lockdown has had no effect on their sport, which relies more on individual input. Mashaya has won several accolades in martial arts, including being the first African Kabudu world champion. He's the first Zimbabwean to be inducted in the International Martial Arts Hall of Fame. To rugby, and the Zimbabwe Rugby Union are mourning the death of the association's former president, David Morgan, who died this week. Morgan, who was at the helm of the association twice in the 1980s, was described by ZRU President Aaron Jani as a top administrator who worked for the good cause of the game. In the early years of independence, he also served as the chairperson of Harare Sports Club. To the Castle Lager Premier Soccer League, where the Premier Soccer League could allow clubs to register more than 30 players for what is set to be a crash 2020 Premiership season. The new season, which was scheduled to get underway in March, is on hold due to the coronavirus epidemic, but ZiFM Emergency Committee provisionally setting August-September as the tentative period in which football activities could resume in this country. PSL clubs could be required to play after every 3 days if the season is to finish in January or February 2021, with PSL Chief Executive Kenny Ndebele having already hinted that ZiFM's Emergency Committee's decision didn't suggest a permanent change of season to the August-May calendar. The fixtures would have to be heavily compressed. That is your local sports roundup.
Hi, this is Mike Madoda, and you can catch me and the team for all the latest breaking news out of the world of sport, local as well as international, on your favorite station, my station, your station, ZiFM. We are Z-Team on ZiFM Sport.
Z. From the front of the grid to the back of the net, it's ZiFM Sport. International Sports News Roundup, where the world comes out to play.
Right now, Ferrari Formula One chief Mattia Binotto says recent talks with Sebastian Vettel over a new contract revealed they no longer shared the same goals. Ferrari announced that four-time world champion Vettel, who would be leaving the team at the end of the season, ending his 6-year stint at Maranello. Carlos Sainz Jr. was named as Vettel's replacement yesterday, signing from McLaren for next year to partner Charles Leclerc. The announcement from Ferrari said the decision to call off contract talks was taken jointly with Vettel, saying there was, quote, no longer a common desire to stay together. Michael, I certainly didn't see this one coming. I don't know if you did.
No, certainly not. I didn't think it was going to happen so soon. I think it was going to happen at some point in the future, but I didn't think the announcement was going to be coming this year. Because when they got Charles Leclerc, you got the feeling that Charles Leclerc is there for the long haul, and he's shown enough promise, enough bite, that he's certainly going to be one of the Formula One title challengers for years to come. So Charles Leclerc certainly one for the future, but I thought that they would have Vettel in there to guide the youngster along. But if truth be told, guys, it's also hardly surprising. And in sport, we attach so much sentimental value or so much sentiment to our sports stars and to our high achievers that sometimes we struggle when things don't go their way. Sometimes we struggle with letting go when things are not working out for them. We did the same with Mike Tyson. You know, when Mike Tyson was well past his prime, yeah. You know, we carried on believing that Mike Tyson was going to be a heavyweight champion and he was going to dominate the world. We've done the same with football, with footballers that we loved. You know, your Zinedine Zidanes. You know, they all went one season too long. We've done that. Even
cricketers as well.
Yeah, even with cricketers as well, we've done that. And it's the same thing with Sebastian Vettel. If we have to take a look at his body of work over the last 4 years, it has been disappointing. He has not given Ferrari enough of a return. Yes, Ferrari hasn't had a car that's good enough to challenge Mercedes, but Ferrari has been blown off the field, blown off the park by Mercedes. And for me, it hasn't been good enough. So he should have been coming a close second. He shouldn't have been coming third and 150 points behind.
Yeah, and I would also throw in there that, it's a bit like a relationship. You can fall out of love. And I just think if you look at his whole manner over the last year or so, you can see that he hasn't got the love that he used to have. They've fallen out of love, Vettel and Ferrari. For me, simple as that.
And that love, Chris, is now elsewhere at Maranello, because you look at it, and everybody's probably assuming that contract talks between Vettel and Ferrari broke down because money, they couldn't agree on a number. But we understand that it was beyond that. It was actually to do with the longevity of the contract versus the contract that Charles Leclerc is on.
Absolutely, and Vettel actually wanted a short-term deal, and They have Leclerc on a deal that expires 2024. So from that, you can see what their future plan is and who they're starting to make a priority. For me, a good move. I think growing with Charles Leclerc is one of those situations where, first of all, you're putting a lot more confidence in him when he's now racing, because he fully believes that the brand he's racing with is backing him. That's one thing. Another thing is also that they're planning for not just the next 5 years or so, but beyond that, and that's what he'll be able to retain for them.
And with Charles Leclerc, young driver, we know that he's the future. In my view, and I believe this in sport, if you're good enough, you're old enough. I don't believe in looking at age. 16-year-old can come and blitz everybody and be good enough. So age is not the issue. You've got two young drivers now at Ferrari. Carlos Sainz Jr., a very, very good driver, very promising at McLaren. You look at that team. Does that, as a Ferrari fan, Michael, give you any sort of confidence and hope going forward?
It does. It certainly gives me confidence for the future, and not for this immediate season. I think this immediate season, I wouldn't want to put too much pressure on them to say, hey guys, you know what, wrest the title away from Lewis Hamilton. But I would say that I think they'll have a situation where these two drivers are going to have to establish themselves as number one driver or number two driver, and they've got an equal opportunity to do that. So, you know, they come in with almost an equal reputation. Their body of work is similar. There's nothing to separate the two. So there can't be one driver who says to the other, hey, I'm a world champion, because none of them have won the title. And so for me, that puts Ferrari in a good place. Let them race. You know, let them really show off their skills. And Ferrari, the car itself, the unit has been improving over the last couple of seasons. And so with these young drivers who are more daring, in truth, we've seen the likes of Verstappen, you know, the likes of Daniel Ricciardo. They're more daring, these young drivers that are coming onto the circuit. And so Ferrari's got two of the best at the moment.
Pause, in your view, very quickly, do you choose a number one driver or do you let them race?
And then you let them race. I think I would let them race and then just see how it pans out. Look, we know that Charles Leclerc has got what it takes to be a world champion. But I certainly would not go with this, you're number one, you're number two. I would say, let's race, guys, and let the car and the driving do the talking.
So come 2021, Carlos Sainz will be with the Scuderia at McLaren. That leaves a seat open. And we understand that McLaren is keen to work with Daniel Ricciardo. Let's see how this all pans out in Formula One.
Hi, this is Benjamin Luck. I'm on the Zimbabwe Davis Cup team, and you're listening to ZiFM Sport.
Around the world in 60 seconds. International sports news.
We take you around the world in 60, courtesy of DSTV. We take off in Serbia, where Novak Djokovic believes he'll break the record for the most Grand Slam titles and become the longest reigning world number one by the time he retires. The 32-year-old, who has 17 Grand Slam titles to his name, 2 behind Rafa Nadal and 3 fewer than Roger Federer, has no doubt in his ability to overtake the other members of the so-called Big Three. Djokovic was in imperious form before the coronavirus pandemic brought the circuit to a halt in early March. We head over to Japan, where the International Olympic Committee has announced a funding package of $800 million to cover the cost of the postponed Tokyo Games. The package, approved by the IOC's executive board, comprises $650 million for organizational concerns and $150 million to support international federations and Olympic committees. In March, the IOC and the Japanese government decided to delay the Games due to start this July for a year due to the coronavirus pandemic. We touched down in the US, where Rory McIlroy is embracing the tag as favorites for this Sunday's tailor-made driver relief, although he is adamant he won't be underestimating his opponent. World number one McIlroy partners Dustin Johnson in a special charity skins game against Ricky Fowler and Matthew Wolff at the Seminole Golf Club in Florida, with the event raising money for organizations helping with the relief efforts during the COVID-19 pandemic. McIlroy has posted top 5 finishes in his last 7 worldwide starts, and Johnson is a 20-time winner on the PGA Tour, giving them the pre-match advantage. But the Northern Irishman expects the Oklahoma State pairing to offer a tough challenge. So La Liga and Supersport have started the countdown to the return of action of the Spanish League by launching a special series called #BackToWin, episodes of which will be shown every Friday on Supersport 13.
Hi, I'm Warriors coach Zdravko Logarušić and you are listening to ZiFM Sport.
Sports with a difference.
Z. The big leagues, the big teams, the big players. The beautiful game on ZiFM Sport. Horsepower unmatched. Torque to beat the best. Speed unrivaled. Sleek and easy on the eye. Let's get behind the wheel of football engineered to perfection. The Bundesliga, made in Germany.
Football is back, and I guess football fans all across the world are heaving a huge sigh of relief as finally we'll be able to take in something that's not the Burundi or South Korean league. In Germany, it gets all underway tomorrow afternoon. Second place Borussia Dortmund will welcome bitter rivals and sixth place Schalke 04 to the Westfalenstadion behind closed doors in the league's first game since the season was suspended in March. The Revier derby between Borussia Dortmund and Schalke is one of the fiercest rivalries in football. Black and yellow and royal blue separating the cities of Dortmund and Gelsenkirchen in the Ruhr region. Schalke and Dortmund played out a goalless draw in October, but the iconic match carries extra weight this time round following the coronavirus outbreak. Dortmund sporting director Michael Zorc says the Revier derby without fans is a painful team that Borussia Dortmund and Schalke followers must accept.
Es ist natürlich anders. It's a strange situation. It's different, and especially now, to play a derby without fans. There's no point in denying that. Our hearts are bleeding. I don't know if it has ever happened in the history of the derby, where we play Schalke without fans. But it is how it is. This is the best case at the moment. What we do need, now that our fans won't be there, is more self-motivating and self-dynamics in order to be successful on Saturday.
Z.
So this will be the 180th Revier derby. Dortmund surprisingly have won just one of the last 8 meetings, beating Schalke 2-1 in December of 2018. Now Dortmund's 4-2 defeat in their last home clash with Schalke is their only league defeat at the Westfalenstadion under Lucien Favre. So the form book certainly with Schalke 04, and even the recent results have gone with Schalke 04, Barry, and they'll be confident as they head to Dortmund.
Yeah, they'll be confident going into Dortmund, but I think this is a Dortmund side that's very different to anything they faced in a while because of the arrival of one man, and that's Erling Haaland. Because now this Dortmund side has got goals in them. They always had the penetrative ability and the ability to get behind defenses. The consummate attacking team it has always been. But the one thing they didn't have is a gunslinger since the departure many moons ago of Robert Lewandowski. Now they do. Erling Haaland, he's going to be the difference.
Erling Haaland, of course, you throw in the likes of Jadon Sancho in the mix there, Chris, and Borussia Dortmund have got a very good young attacking side, and they'll be looking to, of course, put that very attractive football on show in a bid to stay in touch with Bayern Munich, because this is all about the league title, isn't it? They're 4 points behind, and this is a match they can ill afford to drop points at.
Absolutely, and this is a match that pretty much the entire world is going to be watching, and what they need to do is really show up on this particular day. The young side, like you say, they're going to have a lot of energy, even coming out of this COVID era where they haven't been playing any football. So it's going to be a really good match, not just for them, I think, but for fans across the world.
Well, this is traditionally, Paz, the biggest game in German football. You know, people tend to think that Borussia Dortmund versus Bayern Munich is the marquee fixture, but the marquee fixture is actually the Revier derby between Schalke and Borussia Dortmund. And it's such a pity, or it's a bit of a tragedy that this game will be played out without fans, because there's a proper rivalry between these two teams. This is similar to Manchester United and Liverpool, even in terms of the geography, because Manchester United and Liverpool just 40 kilometers apart in England. Same thing again with Dortmund and Schalke as well. They're, I think, about 36 kilometers apart. And so it's a really intense local rivalry, and it'll be a bit diminished, somewhat diminished, I think, to be played out in an empty stadium.
Yeah, I agree with you, but hey, guys, let's let beggars not be choosers here. The good thing is football is back, so at least we have something to look forward to. I actually don't mind if there's nobody in the stadium. It's just something. We've missed football big time, and as Chris was saying earlier, that the whole world will be watching. I don't think this many people will be streaming a German Bundesliga game in the history of Bundesliga football this coming weekend, because I think we've all been so starved of no action over the last 5 or 6 weeks. So, look, it's sad that the crowd are not going to be in the stadium for this big derby game, because it really is something to see when these two are in full flight with both sets of supporters in the stadium. But all I'm saying is, let's be thankful football is back.
Yeah, absolutely. Thankful that football is back. Now, a lot of Zimbabwean fans will not be familiar with Schalke 04. They will know a lot about Borussia Dortmund, especially when people got familiar with Borussia Dortmund winning the Champions League. That was way back, Barry, I think in 97. I think Borussia Dortmund winning the Champions League in 97. They were certainly one of the powerhouses in European football, and it's a brand or a team that we're familiar with. Not so much Schalke 04. So let's get to hear the pre-match thoughts of their coach, David Wagner, who was actually a manager in the English Premier League last season, who says that playing Dortmund is an advantage for Schalke.
Und das muss man natürlich auch ganz klar sagen. Wir haben einen riesen Vorteil.
Of course, you have to be very clear that we have a huge advantage after this break. Because we're not playing any game. It's because we're playing the derby. It's something that makes it more interesting and exciting. It also makes it easier for everybody to focus, because it's the game. It's a pity that it takes place without spectators, especially our away fans. But in the end, it doesn't matter, because it's Schalke against Dortmund. That's still the biggest game of the season for us. The lack of fans mustn't be important for us, because even if there's nobody in the stadium, there's still enough fans sitting in front of the TV, and they will support us with absolute passion.
Barry, David Wagner's Schalke coming into this game 14 points behind Borussia Dortmund, so they got nothing to play for as far as the title is concerned, but they will revel in the role of spoiler.
They will revel in the role of spoiler. David Wagner himself won't be happy that the wheels have all but come off the season, because those who follow the Bundesliga will know that at one point they were 1 point behind Borussia Dortmund and were right in the mix, but now have fallen away badly, and Borussia Dortmund has picked up, which is why I'm certainly backing Dortmund in this game. But David Wagner, what we saw here with him at Huddersfield in England, what we saw with him and his ability to coach a team that has shape, that has organization, that has entertainment value, he's well capable of doing that. So the role of spoiler is very much on. I don't think this is going to be a give-me for the black and yellow.
And I love, Chris, how Schalke has engaged with fans on social media this past week, appealing to those followers of the English game, who are the majority, of course, in world football. And I love that sort of creativity, and it shows you that they've got people out there who are thinking. We talked about the first move advantage that the Bundesliga has got on the rest of the major league in Europe. And it just shows that someone in their marketing department, in their publicity department, is doing a bit of thinking that, hey, listen, we can get some good mileage in these first few weeks where we are the only product that's on TV.
Absolutely. And it's really great to see, I think in Zimbabwe, we look at social media management like I need to put a square on Twitter every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Meanwhile, in the rest of the world now, they've gone beyond that, and they're looking at it from actually harvesting fans. This is not social media that's being done. Make no mistake, it's entertaining and it's fun. It's not being done just to, entertain people. This is a deliberate attempt to get people to a stage where, they identify with this club. They're going to be spending money on this club, whether it's getting merchandise, whether it's actually getting proper streaming services, whatever the case may be. This comes down to the dollar. And it's really cool to see how people are thinking outside of, okay, we're not getting gate taking, but what are we doing to harvest this major viewership that we have? And it was a really clever way, tongue in cheek, but done very tastefully. And I think a lot of Zimbabwean clubs could do well to learn from them.
Absolutely. Pause, of course, I know you're going to be whipping out your Schalke or Fear jersey this coming Saturday, chomping at the bit for some football action. Let's get the predictions in, guys. Who do you see walking away with the points, and what are the score lines? Kicking off with you, Pause.
I'll go Dortmund to win 2-0.
2-0 Dortmund. Chris?
I'm going to go Dortmund to win 2-1.
2-1. And Baz? You're a Bayern Munich fan. I wouldn't be surprised if you go for Schalke.
No. I listen. I think as a pundit, you can be smarter than that, and I think Dortmund will take this on 3-1.
3-1, okay. I'm going with 3-0 for Borussia Dortmund, and we don't have long to wait or long to find out because action gets underway in the Bundesliga tomorrow afternoon. Your Bundesliga weekend fixtures: Augsburg will take on Wolfsburg, Fortuna Düsseldorf versus Paderborn, Red Bull Leipzig versus Freiburg, Hoffenheim versus Hertha Berlin, Eintracht Frankfurt versus Borussia Mönchengladbach, Cologne versus Mainz, Union Berlin versus Bayern Munich. Borussia Dortmund will take on Schalke 04 in the pick of the fixtures. And then there's Monday night football where Werder Bremen will entertain Bayer Leverkusen.
All the rivalry.
Here is Harry Kane for Tottenham. Oh, what a goal! A classic derby goal from Harry Kane. Catch him if you can.
All the stars.
Oh, back here's Liverpool 2 in front. Talk about impudence. Talk about improvisation. Talk about Sadio Mane.
And all the game-changing moments.
And Raheem Sterling rattles at home. And once more, City are in front in a trice.
All the updates from the Premier League on ZiFM Sport.
And Tottenham striker Harry Kane says he's fully recovered from a hamstring injury and will be ready to go whenever the Premier League resumes. The England captain hasn't played since rupturing a tendon in his left hamstring against Southampton on New Year's Day, after which he underwent surgery. Let's hear from the England captain, Harry Kane.
Before the lockdown, I was pretty much doing everything except from training with the team. So yeah, kind of since the lockdown, I was at a good stage. Before the lockdown, I was pretty much doing everything except from training with the team. So yeah, kind of since the lockdowns happened, I continued doing Zoom sessions online with the team, a bit of specific work where I do my own stuff for the hamstring and things like that, but pretty much doing everything else the boys were doing. And then obviously the last kind of week or so, we've been able to go in and do kind of one-on-one training with one member of staff on a pitch. So it's been nice to kind of get out and start touching the ball again and start feeling. So yeah, so I'm pretty much as good as I can be.
Harry Kane, for me, Barry, certainly, and I think for Harry Kane, that the break has actually played into Jose Mourinho's hands as well as Harry Kane, because he's managed to get his star man totally fit and rearing to go during this break.
And you could see how Spurs were struggling without Harry Kane and some of the other injuries that they had, which will be a big boost for them when the football does return. But I think chief among them has got to be Harry Kane. You can't replace his goals. He's always there or thereabouts in terms of top goal scoring in the Premier League. And I believe that in the last 3 seasons, he's actually been let down by the amount of injuries that he's suffered. You've got to think to yourself, you've probably been closer to the top. He's a consummate top man. He's a box striker. He can also do a bit in terms of bringing others into play, so he makes a big difference to Jose Mourinho's side. And no doubt Jose will be smiling from ear to ear.
Indeed, and he's been doing a little bit of PR work as well as our man Harry, because he recently confirmed he will be Leyton Orient's shirt sponsor next season, with the striker helping out his former club financially while also using the shirts to say thanks to frontline health workers who've risked their lives during the COVID-19 crisis. Well, we all wait in anticipation concerning the Premier League, which was suspended in March because of the coronavirus pandemic, and despite players having been unable to return to individual sessions at club training grounds, the earliest top-flight matches appear likely to resume in June. The government says it's opening the door for the return of professional football in England in June. Cultural Secretary Oliver Dowden confirmed this yesterday and said that meeting with the Football Association, Premier League and English Football League had progressed plans. Michael, just quickly, do you think this is all going to come together?
Yeah, I think so. At some point, I think the fact that the Bundesliga is resuming, I think it adds a lot of pressure, external pressure on the other major leagues that something can be done to get football back again. So I think England, of course, are a bit more circumspect because they're trying to deal with the politics in the land. I think the Conservatives under Boris Johnson not wanting to immediately give the permission that the Premier League needs to get football back underway because they don't want a public falling out, because there already has been one around how they've handled the COVID-19 pandemic. But football will return. But I suspect that it will return maybe a month from now. We're taking a look at mid-June for me in England. They're going to try and wait a bit. And I think as they relax the lockdown restrictions and they move up through the stages to a point where people are allowed to get back to work again and movement is allowed in England, who knows, by the time that football starts and ends, we could have a situation where us Liverpool fans could be well allowed to celebrate the Premiership title, because that will only come 2 months from now.
The league that makes football oh so beautiful, where artistry and strokes of genius are the order of any day, where the game is played with a smile and the little master creates his magic.
It's Lionel Messi!
All the news from the Spanish La Liga on ZiFM Sport.
Over to La Liga, where Lionel Messi insisted Barcelona cannot win the Champions League unless they improve their performances, disagreeing with head coach Quique Setien. COVID-19 has wreaked havoc globally, bringing sport to a standstill, with the likes of La Liga and the Champions League on hiatus since March. Barca, who returned to individual training last week, had been preparing for the second leg of their Champions League last 16 tie against Napoli when the competition was suspended due to the coronavirus. Now, that, of course, tie was precariously balanced at 1 apiece, and the first leg taking place in February now. But I want to focus more on the comments by Messi and rather how they impact the cohesiveness at Barcelona. You don't often hear players disagree with their coaches publicly, and least of all to hear Lionel Messi contradict Quique Setien. Your thoughts on this one, Mikey?
I think Messi may well be right, and I think he's basing it on that Clásico result where they lost to Real Madrid. I think it was 3-1 or 2-1. They lost to Real Madrid, and this is not a great Real Madrid side. This is a Real Madrid side that lost to Manchester City at the Santiago Bernabeu 2-1 in the Champions League. So Messi is taking a look at the level of competition and saying, if we are losing to Real Madrid, if we are going to Madrid and losing, and the likes of Man City are able to come to the Santiago Bernabeu and dominate and get a result, it means that Man City is probably in a better place than us in this particular competition. So he's concerned. But the big boost for Barcelona is the return of Luis Suarez, because I think part of the reason why they've struggled in recent weeks is because Luis Suarez wasn't there. They didn't have a fulcrum. They didn't have the tip of the arrow, as it were. He's back. He scores goals, and with Lionel Messi's creativity, they'll certainly be in a better place.
Well, La Liga officials are looking to resume the 2019-2020 season in mid-June, and they'll be looking towards Germany, who restart tomorrow, as a marker on the success or otherwise of restarting football.
The Nerazzurri, the Black and Blues, Inter Milan.
It's Romelu Lukaku, and it was never in doubt. He's a beast at the best of times, but this season he has become a monster.
The Giallorossi, the Yellow and Reds, AS Roma.
Belotti has a go! Tremendous hits! That's what he's capable of!
La Viola, the Purple Ones, Fiorentina.
Franck Ribéry seals a glorious win for Fiorentina with a sumptuous goal at San Siro.
The Bianconeri, the Black and Whites, Juventus.
Ronaldo seals yet another 3 points for Juventus.
Tough yet colourful. The best of Italian football on Z.
Quick update coming out of Serie A. Former Italy striker Marco Di Vaio has admired the patient approach Lazio have taken in building a squad capable of challenging for the 2019-20 Scudetto. Di Vaio, who came through the academy with Lazio and made his senior debut with the club, has been impressed with how the club is being run. The head of Italy's Olympic Committee, the CONI, believes that there's a 99% chance the government will allow Serie A to resume on the 13th of June.
So with all the leagues looking like they are coming back, it means that we've got lots more to talk about apart from just a coronavirus. We will have real sport as well to talk to you about. Certainly on Monday when we return, we'll be talking you through the start of the Bundesliga. We're all excited. I hope you are too. Time always the enemy on the show. We've got to go. We'll catch you on Monday. For now, may God richly bless you. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Manande, out.
And it's Messi! It is the cleanest of clean finishes from the best on the planet.
The biggest sports stories.
Liverpool, the champions of Europe, are top of the world.
The biggest interviews.
That such a great spectacle is ruined by such thuggish behavior.
And all the analysis right here.
He's the one player that has the arrogance to think that he can play in any stadium in the world and any pitch in the world in front of any player in the world and take them on.
Every weekday, it's my sport, it's your sport. It's ZiFM Sport on ZiFM Stereo. My station, your station.